The words seemed innocent enough when she first said them. We were lying in bed on a Tuesday night, not talking about anything in particular, just existing in that quiet space that long-term couples sometimes inhabit. The television was on with the volume down low. She was reading something on her phone. I was thinking about work, about a project that had gone sideways and needed fixing on Friday. "I think I need some space," she said. I didn't immediately process what that meant. Space could mean a lot of things. Space could mean she needed some time alone. Space could mean she wanted to take a solo vacation. Space could mean she wanted to spend some time with friends without me around. I'd learned over the course of our 9 years of marriage that women often needed space in ways that men didn't particularly understand, and I'd tried to be the kind of husband who gave her that space when she asked for it. "Okay," I said, not looking away from the television. "What kind of space?" "I don't know exactly," she said, and there was something in her voice that made me turn to look at her. She was staring at her phone, not making eye contact with me. "I just feel like things between us have gotten stale. I feel like we've lost the spark. I feel like maybe we need some time apart to figure out if we even want to keep doing this." Now my attention was fully on her. This wasn't a request for a weekend away with friends. This was something bigger. "Are you talking about separating?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral, trying not to jump to conclusions or panic. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe. I need time to think. I need to figure out what I want." I felt a cold sensation spreading through my chest. We'd been married for 9 years, and yes, like any long marriage, we'd had our ups and downs. We'd had periods where things felt disconnected, where we'd been more focused on work and routines than on each other. But I didn't remember us ever being at the point where she was saying she needed to figure out if she even wanted to be married to me. "Can we talk about this?" I asked. "Can we actually discuss what's going on?" "I don't think there's much to discuss right now," she said. "I just need space. I need to stay in a hotel for a while, or maybe go stay with my friend Michelle for a bit. I need to clear my head and figure things out." "How long are we talking about?" I asked. "I don't know," she said. "A week? A month? I don't know yet." I wanted to argue with her. I wanted to tell her that running away wasn't going to solve anything, that if we were having problems, we needed to face them together, that I was willing to go to counseling or try whatever else might help. But something in her demeanor told me that none of that was going to matter right now. She had already made her decision about needing space, and my arguments were only going to push her further away. "Okay," I said finally. "If that's what you need, then you should do it." I couldn't believe those words were coming out of my mouth. I couldn't believe I was telling my wife to leave me. But I was trying to be the good husband, the supportive husband, the husband who understood that sometimes relationships needed breathing room. She packed a bag the next morning. She told me she was going to stay with Michelle for the first week and that she would text me about next steps after that. She kissed me on the cheek before she left, a gesture that felt more like a formality than an expression of affection. I watched her drive away, and even though I told myself this was temporary, even though I told myself she just needed time to think and she would come back, there was a part of me that knew something fundamental had shifted. I tried to give her the space she asked for. I didn't text her multiple times a day. I didn't show up at Michelle's house demanding to talk to her. I didn't call her crying and begging her to come home. I was the understanding husband. I was the patient husband. I was the husband who believed that his marriage could be salvaged if he just gave it enough time. For 2 weeks, I existed in a state of limbo. She would text me occasionally brief messages about logistics. Did I pay the water bill? Did I remember that my car insurance was due? That sort of thing. Nothing about us. Nothing about whether she was coming back. Nothing that suggested she was thinking about our marriage at all. And then one Friday afternoon, a registered letter arrived at the house. I opened it with shaking hands and found the divorce papers inside. Section 2. The divorce papers. I remember sitting on the couch for what felt like hours, just staring at the papers, trying to understand what I was reading, trying to make sense of the fact that my wife hadn't just asked for space. She'd been planning to divorce me the entire time. The papers were dated from 10 days before she'd asked for space, which meant she'd already been talking to a lawyer before she'd ever said a word to me about needing to think about our marriage, which meant that when she'd kissed me goodbye and driven away, she'd already made the decision that our marriage was over. I felt sick. I felt betrayed. I felt like the floor had just been pulled out from under me. The papers outlined her terms. She wanted the house. She wanted most of our joint savings. She wanted alimony. She wanted me to pay for her lawyer. And then there was a section about infidelity that made me read it twice to make sure I was understanding it correctly. She was claiming that I had been unfaithful. She was claiming that I had had an affair. And on the basis of that claim, she was trying to get a more favorable settlement. It was absolutely insane. I had never been unfaithful. I had never even been tempted to be unfaithful. The entirety of our marriage, I had been a faithful husband. And now she was lying about me in legal documents to make sure she could take as much of our money as possible. I called her. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. I texted her asking her to call me. I texted her asking how she could do this. I texted her pointing out that she was lying in the divorce papers. She didn't respond to any of it. I called my best friend, Derek, and told him what had happened. He came over immediately. I showed him the papers. He read through them with the kind of careful attention that Derek always brought to things, and then he looked at me and said, "You need a lawyer. Like, today. You need someone who specializes in family law." I knew he was right. I knew that I couldn't navigate this on my own. But I also knew that I was in shock, that I was not thinking clearly, that I probably shouldn't be making any major decisions while I was in this state. "There's something else," I said to Derek. "Something that doesn't add up." "What?" he asked. "She claims I've been cheating. But there's no way she could actually believe that. We haven't even had any proof of infidelity in this marriage. So, why would she put that in the papers?" "Because it helps her case," Derek said. "If she can convince a judge that you've been unfaithful, you'll likely have to pay her more. She's trying to manipulate the system." As soon as Derek said it, I knew he was right. She was lying. She was deliberately lying in court documents to try to squeeze more money out of me. And while I was angry about that, I was also starting to wonder what else she'd lied about. What else had she been planning that I hadn't known about? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about everything, trying to piece together what had happened to our marriage. When had things gone wrong? When had she decided that she wanted out? And more importantly, when had she decided that she was willing to lie to get what she wanted? I thought about the past few months. I thought about her behavior, her distance, the times she'd been secretive about her phone. I thought about the nights when she'd come home late from work or from time with friends. I thought about how many times I'd asked her if everything was okay, and she told me it was fine. And then I thought about the security camera. 3 months ago, I'd installed a security camera system outside the house. It wasn't because I didn't trust my wife, or at least I didn't think it was, but because there had been some break-ins in the neighborhood, and I wanted to protect our home. The cameras recorded to a cloud system that I could access from my phone or my laptop. I'd never had a reason to review the footage before. I'd never suspected that anything nefarious was happening in my own home. But now I had a reason. Now I had a very good reason that I logged into the security camera system at 2 in the morning on Saturday. I told myself I was just going to check on a few things. I told myself I was just going to see if there was any activity that might explain her sudden request for space and her equally sudden divorce filing. I started reviewing footage from the past month, scrolling backward through dates, looking for something I couldn't quite name. The footage showed the normal rhythms of our lives. Her leaving for work, me leaving for work, her coming home, both of us going about our daily existence. And then, about 3 weeks back, I saw something different. A man pulled into our driveway in an Uber. Not someone I recognized. Not someone who belonged at my house. He was in his early 40s, attractive in a conventional way, wearing a business suit. He walked up to the front door and my wife opened it before he even knocked. She was wearing a dress. A nice dress. The kind of dress she didn't wear to be at home alone. They kissed. Right there in the doorway, in broad daylight, like they had every right to be doing it. I felt my stomach turn. I felt a white-hot rage starting to build in my chest. But I kept watching. I kept scrolling through the footage. Because if she was willing to lie in court documents, I wanted to have all the evidence I could possibly get. Over the next 3 weeks, this man came to the house multiple times. Always during times when I was at work. Always when she could guarantee I wouldn't be there. He would arrive in the afternoon, and they would go inside. And then, hours later, he would leave. I found footage of them in the living room, on the couch where we'd watched movies together, where we'd sat and talked about our days. I found footage of them in the kitchen, where she was making him food, where she was laughing at something he said. I found footage of them going upstairs to the bedroom. I didn't watch that part. I couldn't watch that part. But I knew what was happening. I didn't need to see the graphic details to understand that my wife was having an affair. And suddenly everything made sense. The request for space. The divorce papers. The claim of infidelity. She wasn't trying to expose me for something I'd done. She was trying to cover up something she had done. She was trying to get ahead of the narrative. She was trying to make sure that if I found out about her affair, I would be the one on the defensive, not her. It was calculated. It was cruel. It was one of the most devastating things I'd ever experienced, and I still had to sit with it for a long time before I could even begin to process it fully. I continued through the footage. I found the man's face in multiple shots. I found dates and times. I found conversations where they were talking about their plans, about how she was going to leave me, about how they were going to be together. I found proof that this affair hadn't just happened. It had been something they'd been planning for months. On the footage from 2 days before she asked for space, I watched as she and this man sat on the porch and looked at something on a laptop. I couldn't see what was on the screen, but based on context, I suspected it was wedding pictures, or real estate listings, or something else related to their future together. The future she'd already decided on without telling me. By the time I finished reviewing the footage, it was 4 in the morning. I had compiled screenshots. I had written down dates and times. I had documented everything. And I was shaking with a mixture of rage, betrayal, and a kind of numb shock that I'd never experienced before. I didn't go back to bed. I sat on the couch with the screenshots spread out in front of me, looking at my wife's face in these images, trying to reconcile the woman I thought I knew with the woman who was capable of this kind of deception. I called a divorce lawyer at 8 in the morning. His name was Thomas Chen, and he came highly recommended by Derek, who'd apparently been researching lawyers in anticipation of the fact that I would need one. Thomas's office was in a high-rise downtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of sophisticated minimalism that suggested he charged a lot of money, which he probably did. I brought the screenshots with me. I brought the cloud login information. I brought the documented timeline. And I laid it all out on Thomas's mahogany desk like I was presenting evidence in a criminal case. Well, Thomas said, looking through the materials, this changes things significantly. Can you explain to me what it changes? I asked. My voice sounded hoarse. I hadn't slept. I'd barely eaten. I was running on adrenaline and rage. Your wife is claiming that you've been the unfaithful one, Thomas said. And on the basis of that, she's trying to get a more favorable settlement. But now we have documented proof that she's the one who's been cheating. And not just casually cheating. This appears to be a sustained affair with someone she's been actively planning a future with. So, what do we do with this? I asked. We use it, Thomas said bluntly. In family law, infidelity can have a significant impact on settlement negotiations, particularly in cases involving alimony. If we can show that she's been unfaithful and moreover that she's been lying about your infidelity to try to manipulate the settlement in her favor, we can potentially turn this entire case around. I don't want the house, I said. I don't want her money. I don't want anything from her except to make sure she understands that I know what she did. I understand your emotional response, Thomas said carefully. But I need to tell you that from a legal standpoint, what you've discovered is extraordinarily valuable. She lied under oath, or she's about to lie under oath by including that infidelity claim in the divorce papers without any basis. That's perjury. That's fraud. And we have the evidence to prove it. I sat with that for a moment. I thought about how angry I was. I thought about how much I wanted to hurt her the way she'd hurt me. I thought about how much I wanted to make sure that she didn't get away with this. Okay, I said. What's the next step? The next step is that we respond to her divorce petition with our own counterpetition, Thomas said. We're going to include all of this evidence. We're going to make it clear that not only have we documented her infidelity, but we've also documented her attempt to fraudulently claim that you were the unfaithful party. And then we're going to see how she wants to proceed. You think she'll want to settle? I asked. I think once she realizes that you have this evidence, settlement becomes her best option, Thomas said. Because if this goes to trial, if a judge sees these photographs and the timeline and understands that she lied, she's going to lose. She's going to lose big. And she knows that. Over the next week, Thomas sent the counterpetition along with all of the evidence to her lawyer. And then we waited. I didn't hear from her. I didn't hear from her lawyer. There was just silence, and that silence stretched on for days. On the 8th day after Thomas sent the counterpetition, my wife called me. It was the first time she'd actually called me since she'd asked for space. The first time she'd actually tried to communicate with me directly. I think we need to talk, she said. Her voice sounded small, defeated. I think we do, I said. I was calm. I was so calm that I almost didn't recognize myself. I want to meet, she said, in person. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop that was neutral ground, owned by neither of us, in a location that wasn't emotionally charged. I arrived 10 minutes early and sat at a corner table where I could see her when she came in. When she finally arrived, she looked like a shadow of the woman I'd married. She looked thin and pale and exhausted. She looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping well. I felt a small amount of satisfaction at that, though I hated myself for feeling it. She sat down across from me, and for a long moment, neither of us said anything. I know about him, I said finally. She flinched. What? I know about the affair. I have video footage. I have dates. I have everything. I know exactly what's been going on. Her face went white. How? Security cameras, I said simply. The ones I installed to protect the house. They recorded everything. They recorded you kissing him in the doorway. They recorded you going upstairs with him. They recorded you making plans with him about a future that doesn't include me. She put her head in her hands. I could see her hands shaking. I'm sorry, she said, her voice muffled. I'm so sorry. I'm not interested in your apology, I said. What I'm interested in is understanding why you decided to lie about me. Why you decided to claim that I was the unfaithful one when you were the one having the affair. I panicked, she said, looking up at me. I thought if I could get the narrative out there first, if I could be the wronged party, that nobody would look too closely at what I was actually doing. I thought I could control the story. Well, you can't, I said. And now your lawyer knows that. Now it's very clear that you lied. And if you want to avoid perjury charges, if you want to avoid a judge seeing this evidence and absolutely decimating you in court, you're going to have to accept my lawyer's settlement offer. What settlement offer? She asked. You get the car you drive, I said. You get your personal belongings. You get a lump sum of $50,000 to help you get on your feet. And that's it. No alimony. No claim on the house. No claim on any other assets. You walk away with those things, and in return, I don't press charges for fraud and perjury. That's not fair, she said. You're right, I agreed. It's not fair. What would be fair is if you had to face the full consequences of what you did. What would be fair is if you had to pay me alimony for lying to the court. What would be fair is if you went to prison for fraud. But I'm not asking for any of that. I'm asking for a simple settlement that allows you to move on with your life and allows me to move on with mine. And if you don't accept it, I'm going to let the judge see everything, and we'll see what happens. She was quiet for a long time. I could see her doing the mental calculation, understanding that she had no leverage, that every option available to her was worse than the one I was offering. Okay, she said finally. Okay, I'll accept your terms. Good, I said. I stood up. My lawyer will send you the paperwork. You'll sign it, and that will be the end of our marriage. I left the coffee shop without another word. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see her face anymore. I didn't want to have any more interaction with her than was absolutely necessary to end this. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. She signed the papers. She accepted the settlement. She disappeared from my life with the same efficiency that she'd infiltrated it with her affair. What I learned from all of this was more than I ever wanted to learn about deception and betrayal. I learned that people are capable of being much darker versions of themselves than you might ever imagine. I learned that trust is fragile and can be shattered in an instant. I learned that infidelity isn't just about physical betrayal, it's about the systematic dismantling of someone's reality. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought I was. I learned that I could look at devastating evidence and use it to protect myself rather than to destroy myself. I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's moving forward with your life intact while the person who tried to destroy you has to live with the consequences of their actions. A year after the divorce was finalized, I'm in a much better place. I've rebuilt my life. I've moved past the anger and the pain. And while I haven't started dating again yet, I know that eventually I will. And I know that the next person I allow into my life will be someone worthy of the trust I'm willing to give them. The security camera footage that exposed her infidelity wasn't something I'd ever expected to find. It wasn't something I'd wanted to find. But it was there, and it was the truth, and the truth, as it turned out, was the only weapon I needed. I still have the screenshots. I don't know why I keep them. Maybe I keep them as a reminder of what people are capable of. Maybe I keep them as insurance, in case she ever tries to do something similar to someone else and I need to provide evidence. Or maybe I just keep them because they're part of my story now, and you don't erase the painful parts of your story. You just learn to live with them. What I do know is that calling my lawyer was the best decision I made during that entire ordeal. Because while I had the evidence, what I didn't have was the legal knowledge to use it effectively. What I didn't have was the strategic thinking to turn her deception into my advantage. What I didn't have was the professional support I needed to navigate one of the most difficult periods of my life. So, if there's a lesson in this story beyond the obvious ones about infidelity and betrayal, it's this. When your world is falling apart, when someone you trusted has fundamentally betrayed you, that's when you need to reach out for professional help. That's when you need to find someone who knows how to fight for you. That's when you need to stop trying to handle everything on your own and start building a team that can help you protect yourself and move forward. I did that.
And it saved me.